Bruges is the capital and largest city of the province of West Flanders in the Flemish region of Belgium, in the northwest of the country, and the seventh largest city of the country by population. The area of the whole city amounts to more than 13,840 hectares, including 1,075 hectares off the coast, at Brugge. The historic city center is a prominent World Heritage Site of UNESCO. It is oval in shape and about 430 hectares in size. The city's total population is 117,073, of whom around 20,000 live in the city center. The metropolitan area, including the outer commuter zone, covers an area of 616 kilometers and has a total of 255,844 inhabitants as of the 1st of January 2008. Along with a few other canal-based northern cities, such as Amsterdam and St. Petersburg, it is sometimes referred to as the Venice of the North. Bruges has a significant economic importance, thanks to its port, and was once one of the world's chief commercial cities. Bruges is well known as the seat of the College of Europe, a university institute for European studies. Etymology of Bruges. The place is first mentioned in records as either Bruges, Brugge, and Brugge in AD 840 to 875. Afterwards, it appears as Brucium and Bruotium, as Bruges Uico, as in Portuguese, as Brugges, as Brickage in the Anglo-Saxon Chronicle, as Bruggensis, as Brisage in the Anglo-Saxon Chronicle, as Bruges, as Bruges, as Bruges, as Bruges, and as Brugge. The name probably derives from the Old Dutch for bridge, Brugge. Also compare Middle Dutch Bruisage, Brugge, and Modern Dutch Bruggehoofd and Brugge. The form Brugge would be a Southern Dutch variant. The Dutch word and the English bridge both derive from Proto-Germanic *Brujo. History. Origins. Bruges was a location of coastal settlement during prehistory. This Bronze Age and Iron Age settlement is unrelated to medieval city development. In the Bruges area, the first fortifications were built after Julius Caesar's conquest of the Menapii in the 1st century BC, to protect the coastal area against pirates. The Franks took over the whole region from the Gallo-Romans around the 4th century and administered it as the Pagus Flandrensis. The Viking incursions of the 9th century prompted Count Baldwin I of Flanders to reinforce the Roman fortifications. Trade soon resumed with England and Scandinavia. Early medieval habitation starts in the 9th and 10th century on the Bure terrain, probably with a fortified settlement and church. Golden Age, 12th to 15th centuries. Bruges became important due to the tidal inlet that was crucial to local commerce. This inlet was then known as the Golden Inlet. Bruges received its city charter on the 27th of July 1128, and new walls and canals were built. In 1089 Bruges became the capital of the county of Flanders. Since about 1050, gradual silting had caused the city to lose its direct access to the sea. A storm in 1134, however, re-established this access, through the creation of a natural channel at the Zwin. The new sea arm stretched all the way to Dam, a city that became the commercial outpost for Bruges. Trade. Bruges had a strategic location at the crossroads of the Northern Hanseatic League trade and the southern trade routes. Bruges was already included in the circuit of the Flemish and French cloth fairs at the beginning of the 13th century, but when the old system of fairs broke down, the entrepreneurs of Bruges innovated. They developed, or borrowed from Italy, new forms of merchant capitalism, whereby several merchants would share the risks and profits and pool their knowledge of markets. They employed new forms of economic exchange, including bills of exchange and letters of credit. The city eagerly welcomed foreign traders, most notably the Portuguese traders selling pepper and other spices. With the reawakening of town life in the 12th century, a wool market, a woolens weaving industry, and the market for cloth all profited from the shelter of city walls, where surpluses could be safely accumulated under the patronage of the Counts of Flanders. The city's entrepreneurs reached out to make economic colonies of England and Scotland's wool-producing districts. English contacts brought Normandy grain and Gascon wines. Hanseatic ships filled the harbour, which had to be expanded beyond Dam to Sluys to accommodate the new cog ships. In 1277, the first merchant fleet from the Republic of Genoa appeared in the port of Bruges, first of the merchant colony that made Bruges the main link to the trade of the Mediterranean. This development opened not only the trade in spices from the Levant, but also advanced commercial and financial techniques and a flood of capital that soon took over the banking of Bruges. The building that the Genoese Republic housed its commercial representation in the city still survives, now housing the Friet Museum. The Bourse opened in 1309 and developed into the most sophisticated money market of the Low Countries in the 14th century. By the time Venetian galleys first appeared, in 1314, they were latecomers. Numerous foreign merchants were welcomed in Bruges, such as the Castilian wool merchants who first arrived in the 13th century. After the Castilian wool monopoly ended, the Basques, many hailing from Bilbao, thrived as merchants and established their own commercial consulate in Bruges by the mid-15th century. The foreign merchants expanded the city's trading zones. They maintained separate communities governed by their own laws until the economic collapse after 1700. Such wealth gave rise to social upheavals, which were for the most part harshly contained by the militia. In 1302, however, after the Bruges Matins, the population joined forces with the Count of Flanders against the French, culminating in the victory at the Battle of the Golden Spurs, fought near Kortrijk on the 11th of July. The statue of Jan Bradel and Peter de Koninck, the leaders of the uprising, can still be seen on the big market square. The city maintained a militia as a permanent paramilitary body. It gained flexibility and high prestige by close ties to a guild of organized militia, comprising professionals and specialized units. Militiamen bought and maintained their own weapons and armor, according to their family status and wealth. At the end of the 14th century, Bruges became one of the four members, along with Frank of Bruges, Ghent and Ypres. Together they formed a parliament. However, they frequently quarreled amongst themselves. In the 15th century, Philip the Good, Duke of Burgundy, set up court in Bruges, as well as Brussels and Lille, attracting a number of artists, bankers, and other prominent personalities from all over Europe. The weavers and spinners of Bruges were thought to be the best in the world, and the population of Bruges grew to at least 125,000 and perhaps up to 200,000 inhabitants at this time around 1400 AD. The new oil painting techniques of the Flemish school gained world renown. The first book in English ever printed was published in Bruges by William Caxton. This is also when Edward IV and Richard III of England spent time in exile here. Decline after 1500. Starting around 1500, the Zwin Channel, which had given the city its prosperity, began silting up and the golden era ended. The city soon fell behind Antwerp as the economic flagship of the Low Countries. During the 17th century, the lace industry took off, and various efforts to bring back the glorious past were made. During the 1650s, the city was the base for Charles II of England and his court in exile. The maritime infrastructure was modernized, and new connections with the sea were built, but without much success, as Antwerp became increasingly dominant. Bruges became impoverished and gradually faded in importance, its population dwindling from 200,000 to 50,000 by 1900. The symbolist novelist George Rodenbach made the city into a character in his novel Bruges la Morte, meaning, Bruges the Dead, which was adapted into Erich Wolfgang Korngold's opera, Die Totstadt. 19th century and later, revival. In the last half of the 19th century, Bruges became one of the world's first tourist destinations, attracting wealthy British and French tourists. By 1909 it had in operation an association called Bruges Forward, Society to Improve Tourism. In World War I, German forces occupied Bruges, but the city suffered virtually no damage and was liberated on the 19th of October 1918 by the Allies. From 1940 in World War II the city again was occupied by the Germans and again spared destruction. On the 12th of September 1944 it was liberated by the 12th Manitoba Dragoons Canadian troops. The liberation of the city was facilitated by the bridge, now known as Canada Bridge, connecting the outer municipalities with the city centre. After 1965, the original medieval city experienced a renaissance. Restorations of residential and commercial structures, historic monuments, and churches generated a surge in tourism and economic activity in the ancient downtown area. International tourism has boomed, and new efforts resulted in Bruges being designated European Capital of Culture in 2002. It attracts some 8 million tourists annually. The port of Zeebrugge was built in 1907. The Germans used it for their U-boats in World War I. It was greatly expanded in the 1970s and early 1980s and has become one of Europe's most important and modern ports. Geography. The municipality comprises the historic city centre of Bruges, Sint-Joseph and St. Peters, Koelkerk, Sint-Andries, Sint-Michiels, Assebroek, St. Cruz, Doodzeil, Lissawedge. Climate. Bruges has an oceanic climate. Landmarks, arts, and culture. Bruges has most of its medieval architecture intact, making it one of the best preserved medieval towns in Europe. The historic center of Bruges has been a UNESCO World Heritage Site since 2000. Many of its medieval buildings are notable, including the Church of Our Lady, whose brick spire reaches 115.6 meters, making it the world's second highest brick tower building. The sculpture Madonna and Child, which can be seen in the transept, is believed to be the only of Michelangelo's sculptures to have left Italy within his lifetime. Bruges' most famous landmark is the Belfry of Bruges, a 13th-century belfry housing a municipal carillon comprising 47 bells. The Belfry of Bruges, independent of the previously mentioned UNESCO World Heritage Site in Bruges, is included on the World Heritage Site of Belfries of Belgium and France. The city still employs a full-time carillonneur, who gives free concerts on a regular basis. In addition to the historic center of Bruges, and the tower included in the Belfries of Belgium and France, Bruges is also home to a third UNESCO World Heritage Site. The 10 Wijngaarden Baganage, a baganage built in the 13th century, is included in the World Heritage Site of Flemish Baganages. Craft. Bruges is known for its lace, a textile technique. Moreover, the city and its famous lace would go on to inspire the Thread Roots film series, the second episode of which, shot in 2011, was partly set in Bruges. Several beers are named after the city, such as Brugge Blonde, Brugge Triple, Brugge, Brugge Babbelaar, Brugge Straffe Hendrik, and Brugge Zot. However, only the latter two, Brugge Zot and Brugge Straffe Hendrik, are brewed in the city itself, in the De Have Mon Brewery. Entertainment. Aquarius Theatre, Boudewijn Sea Park, Bicorf, Cinema Liberty, Cinema Lumière, Concertgebouw, Bruges, De Dijk, De Werf, Het Entrepot, Joseph Rylandszaal, Knepolis Bruges, Magdalenazaal, Circle Theatre Stades Schouwburg Brugge, Studio Hall, festivals, museums and historic sites, non-religious. Bruges is home to many museums of various kinds. Its art museums include the Arenshaus, as well as the Groningen Museum, which has an extensive collection of medieval and early modern art, including a notable collection of Flemish primitives. Various celebrated painters, such as Hans Memling and Jan van Eyck, lived and worked in Bruges. The preserved old city gateways, the Kruispoort, the Gentpoort, the Smedenpoort and the Azelpoort. The Dampoort, the Caitlinenpoort and the Boverypoort are gone. The old St. John's Hospital and Our Lady of the Potteries are hospital museums. Most notably, the city is known for Brugge Museum, the general name for a group of 11 different historical museums in the city, including Groothuis Museum, a museum for the house of Louis de Groothuis. Church of Our Lady, Archaeological Museum, Gentpoort, Belfry, City Hall on the Berg Square, Provincial Hof, Manor of the Brugge Vrije, Museum of Folklore, Guido Hazel Museum, Colway Mill, Sint Jansius Mill. Bruges non-municipal museums include the Brewery Museum, Hof Bladelin, Choco Story, Lumina Domestica, Museum Gallery XPO, Salvador Dali, Diamond Museum, Friet Museum, Historium, Lace Center, St. George's Archers Guild, St. Sebastian's Archers Guild, St. Trudeau Abbey, and the Public Observatory Bijsbroek. Religious sites and landmarks. Bruges, the patron saint of which is Andrew the Apostle, is also known for its religious landmarks. The Basilica of the Holy Blood, in particular, is the relic of the Holy Blood, which was brought to the city after the Second Crusade by Thierry of Alsace, and is paraded every year through the streets of the city. More than 1,600 inhabitants take part in this mile-long religious procession, many dressed as medieval knights or crusaders. Other religious landmarks and museums include the Church of Our Lady, English Convent, Jerusalem Church, St. Salvator's Cathedral, St. Trudeau's Abbey, 10 Wijngaarden Baganage, and Ter Duist Abbey in Lissawege. Gallery. Transport. Road. Bruges has motorway connections in all directions. To Ostend, to Ghent in Brussels, to Vern in France, to Kortrijk in Tournai, to Zeebrugge, to Antwerp. Driving within the Egg, the historical center enclosed by the main circle of canals in Bruges, is discouraged by traffic management schemes, including a network of one-way streets. The system encourages the use of set routes leading to central car parks and direct exit routes. The car parks are convenient for the central commercial and tourist areas. They are not expensive. Railway. Bruges main railway station is the focus of lines to the Belgian coast. It also provides at least hourly trains to all other major cities in Belgium, as well as to Lille, France. Further, there are several regional and local trains. The main station is also a stop for the Thalys train Paris-Brussels-Ostend. Bus links to the center are frequent, though the railway station is just a 10-minute walk from the main shopping streets and a 20-minute walk from the market square. Plans for a north-south light rail connection through Bruges, from Zeebrugge to Lichtervelde, and a light rail connection between Bruges and Ostend are under construction. Air, the National Brussels Airport, 1 hour away by train or car, offers the best connections. The nearest airport is the Ostend-Bruges International Airport in Ostend, but it offers limited passenger transport and connections. Recently there also started a direct bus line from Brussels South Charleroi Airport to Bruges. Public city transport. Bruges has an extensive web of bus lines, operated by De Lijn, providing access to the city center and the suburbs and to many towns and villages in the region around the city. In support of the municipal traffic management, free public transport is available for those who park their cars in the main railway station car park. Cycling. Although a few streets are restricted, no part of Bruges is car-free. Cars are required to yield to pedestrians and cyclists. Plans have long been underway to ban cars altogether from the historic center of Bruges or to restrict traffic much more than it currently is, but these plans have yet to come to fruition. In 2005, signs were changed for the convenience of cyclists, allowing two-way cycle traffic on more streets. However, car traffic has not decreased. Nevertheless, in common with many cities in the region, there are thousands of cyclists in the city of Bruges. Port. The port of Bruges is Zeebrugge. On the 6th of March 1987, the British ferry MS Herald of Free Enterprise capsized after leaving the port, killing 187 people, in the worst disaster involving a British civilian vessel since 1919. Sports. Between 1998 and 2016, Bruges hosted the start of the annual Tour of Flanders cycle race, held in April and one of the biggest sporting events in Belgium. Football is also popular in Bruges. The city hosts two professional football teams, both of which play at the top-level club Brugge KV are the current national champions, while the second team, Cercle Brugge KSV, was recently promoted to the first tier. Both teams play their home games at the Jan Bredel Stadium in Sint-Andries. There are plans for a new stadium for Club Brugge with about 45,000 seats in the north of the city, while the city council would renovate and reduce the capacity of the Jan Bredel Stadium for Cercle Brugge. In 2000, Bruges was one of the 8 host cities for the UEFA European Football Championship, co-hosted by Belgium and its neighbor the Netherlands. In 2021, Bruges, along with Leuven, is to host the UCI Road Racing Championship. Education. Bruges is an important center for education in West Flanders. Next to the several common primary and secondary schools, there are a few colleges, like the Vives, a fusion of the former KHBO and the KATHO or the HOWEST. Furthermore, the city is home to the College of Europe, a prestigious institution of postgraduate studies in European economics, law and politics, and of the United Nations University Institute on Comparative Regional Integration Studies, a research and training institute of the United Nations University specializing in the comparative study of regional integration. Town twinning policy. On principle, Bruges has to date never entered into close collaboration with twin cities. Without denying the usefulness of these schemes for towns with fewer international contacts, the main reason is that Bruges would find it difficult to choose between cities and thinks that it has enough work already with its many international contacts. Also, it was thought in Bruges that twinning was too often an occasion for city authorities and representatives to travel on public expense. This principle resulted, in the 1950s, in Bruges refusing a jumelage with Nice and other towns, signed by a Belgian ambassador without previous consultation. In the 1970s, a Belgian consul in Oldenburg made the mayor of Bruges sign a declaration of friendship which he tried to present, in vain, as a jumelage. The twinning between some of the former communes, merged with Bruges in 1971, were discontinued. This does not mean that Bruges would not be interested in cooperation with others, as well in the short term as in the long run, for particular projects. Here follow a few examples. Bastogne, Luxembourg, Belgium after World War II and into the 1970s, Bruges, more specifically the Fire Brigade of Bruges, entertained friendly relations with Bastogne. Each year a free holiday was offered at the seaside in Zeebrugge, to children from the Nut City. Arolsen, Hesse, Germany from the 1950s until the 1980s. Bruges was the patron of the Belgian 1st Regiment of Horse Guards, quartered in Arolsen. Salamanca, Castilla y León, Spain. Both towns having been made European Capital of Culture in 2002, Bruges had some exchanges organized with Salamanca. Mons, Hainaut, Belgium in 2007, cultural and artistic cooperation between Mons and Bruges was inaugurated. Burgos, Castilla y León, Spain on the 29th of January 2007. The mayors of Burgos and Bruges signed a declaration of intent about future cooperation on cultural, touristic and economic matters. Bruges in popular culture. Notable people. Literature. Hendrik Conscience's The Lion of Flanders, or The Battle of the Golden Spurs, is a historical fiction novel based on the medieval Franco-Flemish War and the Battle of the Golden Spurs, both of which historically include Bruges. Ludwig Bemelman's children's novel The Golden Basket tells the story of a family's visit to Bruges. In the novel, two sisters stay at the Golden Basket Hotel in Bruges with their father. On a visit to Bruges Cathedral with the innkeeper's son, the sisters meet a dozen little schoolgirls. This would mark the first appearance of Bemelman's best-known character, Madeleine. The last chapter of Saul Bellow's 1953 novel The Adventures of Augie March features the titular character driving through France on his way to Bruges on business. Bruges La Morte, a short novel by the Belgian author Georges Rodenbach. The libretto of Erich Wolfgang Korngold's opera Die Totstad is based on this book. The detective stories of Belgian writer Peter Aspe are situated in Bruges. Nicolo Rising, the first volume of Dorothy Dunnett's 8-book series, House of Nicolo, is largely set in Bruges. Other books in the series also have sections set in the Belgian city. Alan Hollinghurst's 1994 novel The Folding Star is set in a Flemish town that is recognizably Bruges. L'Astrologue de Bruges, a Belgian bande dessinée in the Yoko Tsuno comic series, is entirely set in both contemporary and 1545's Bruges. The first part of the Letters from Zedelgem story in David Mitchell's Cloud Atlas takes place near Bruges, in the titular Zedelgem municipality. Britannica.